Hello fellow YouTubers, and welcome to episode 12, reading my first self-published novel, Aggravation. In the kitchen, the jug chattering away, Clyde stood before the old stove, torch in one hand, a bread knife in the other. Before searching the stove, he had decided to wrap the flue with the spine of the knife, just to make sure it was hollow, for who knows what the sisters were thinking. But after a minute of wrapping and listening with intent, he was certain the flue contained nothing but soot. Placing the knife on the bench top, he then turned on the torch, bent low from the waist, opened the door to the firebox and peered inside. Nothing. Remaining crouched, he took one step to his right, opened the open door, but again there was nothing. At his feet was a metal kick plate, to his left the same. So he got down on his knees where, after several failed attempts to pull the plate loose, he finally managed to do so, and with his chin touching the floor, he introduced the torchlight to the dark. Rectangular space directly in front of him, but there was nothing but dust, ash, spider webs, a few dead flies, and a spattering of tiny droppings from a once resident mouse. Knee walking to the second and last plate, he was able to remove it without trouble. And after assuming his position as before, the torchlight turning the dark into day, he looked, and what he saw was what he couldn't believe he was looking at. The front of a neatly tied package about the size of two side-by-side shoe boxes. "Eureka!" he said out loud. Then he reached into and just managed to work a finger under the string binding, slowly but surely, then bringing the package forward a few inches. 6. By God, it's heavy, he thought. A foot. Almost there. Almost there. Come on. Come on. Gotcha. On first sight of the package, his heart rate had increased, but with the package resting on the floor between his knees, it was beating a military tattoo somewhere between his throat and breastbone. Such was his excitement. The top of the package was thick with a mixture of dust and soot, and the final resting place, a half a dozen moths, a few flies, and the shed casing of a huntsman's spider, all of which he swept clear with the edge of a hand, picking up the package then and placing it on the kitchen table, with his eyes wide and in a state of high expectation, like a child on Christmas Day morning. He tore at the faded brown paper wrapping without bothering to cut the string binding, his arms like a thrashing machine as his fingers eager to search and find, like a mountain climber feeling for nooks and crevices as he scaled a vertical face, then gripping the already torn and ragged edges of paper and tearing them loose, casting them aside. To where they came to rest he didn't care. Like chips of wood flying off the edge of an axe, the pieces of paper flew, raining down like snowflakes, covering the tabletop, chairs and floor, finally exposing the 4 boxes, white with black lids embossed with gold lettering. One word: Tiffany. Tiffany's shoes popped into his head, then popped out again as he lifted and freed the lid closest to him, the string binding falling loose as he stared at the sight before him. Instantly recognisable, no doubt about it. $100 notes stacked vertically on edge and crammed so tight he doubted if a fine-bladed knife could penetrate without minor damage being done. Without further hesitation, he discarded the remaining 3 lids. Sitting down then, awestruck at the wealth displayed before him. Although a wealthy man himself, a millionaire, he had never tried to envisage what $10,100 notes would look like. But here, now, was perhaps twice that amount, and it truly overwhelmed him. For several minutes he just sat looking from one box to the next, to the other, to the last without a thought. And when a thought finally presented itself, it was this: I'll give half of it to Sandy. Yep, that's what I'll do. Followed with, I wonder how much there is. I could count it, I suppose. Or maybe I could count out 100 notes and measure the thickness of the wad, then simply measure the length of one box. Then it's a simple mathematical exercise. Not 100% accurate, to be sure, but it won't be far off the mark. Yes, I'll do that. With the jug long since boiled, he brewed a pot of tea, first rinsed out his mug, then went to his office and returned with a ruler. After pouring a little milk into the mug and returning the milk to the refrigerator, he sat at the table, and, as he expected, the notes were so tightly packed that all he could do was upend the box and wrap the finger knuckles of a hand at the bottom to dislodge them. The result of his action dislodging more than he expected. But then he didn't expect anything less, nor did he give a damn. The notes were new and easy to count, sliding off one another as smooth as silk. The 100 notes forming a wad in no more than 2 minutes, the thickness noted as being 8 millimeters, the length of a box 310 millimeters, the thickness of an end 3 millimeters, therefore 304 millimeters divided by 8 equals 38. 38 times 10,000 equals 300. 80,000 times 4 equals 1,520,000. Good God Almighty, Clyde said incredulously. $1,520,000. And it's all tax-free. Wait till Sandy sees this lot. He won't be able to believe his eyes, he won't. And when I tell him half of it's his, he won't believe his ears either. Clyde was still as excited as a kid in a candy shop, that he wanted to phone Sandy and tell him to get over here quick smart. But he knew he'd be here sooner or later this afternoon, so what was the point? And besides, there was always the chance, remote as it was, that if he phoned someone all excited, that person might drop everything and come a-running, and by doing so, be at a spot where something terrible happened, that they otherwise wouldn't have been there for it to happen to them. But as it turned out, by the time Clyde had finished lunch, Sandy was knocking on the front door. His reaction to the look on Clyde's face: "You look like the cat who swallowed the canary. What are you so happy about, Clyde?" "Follow me, my friend, and all will be revealed," Clyde said, ushering Sandy down the hallway. "And believe me, when you see what's sitting on the kitchen table, you too will be happy." With Clyde leading the way, Sandy wasn't able to see what was on the kitchen table straight away upon entering, only managing to catch the sight of the mess on the floor. But the instant Clyde stepped to one side and seated himself, Sandy came to a sudden stop mid-stride at the sight of what he thought it was but couldn't be, because there was too much of it to be. Is that real money, Clyde?" Sandy stuttered in amazement of the sight resting on the table 6 feet in front of him. Clyde nodded. "Oh yeah, it's real all right. All 15,200 of them." "Where? What? I mean..." "Sit down, Sandy." Clyde beckoned to the chair closest to him, "and I'll tell you all about it." 2 cigarettes and a mug of tea later, Sandy still found it hard to believe that what he was looking at was real. Harder still to believe that Clyde was giving him half of it. And because of the magnitude of it, Sandy wasn't thinking clearly when he said, "But what if me pension, Clyde? With that sort of money I'd lose it, wouldn't I?" Clyde laughed and said, Sandy, who but you, Alma and me, will know that you have it, eh? And I'm not about to tell anyone, believe me. And think what you and Alma can do with it. Why, there must be plenty of things the two of you have always wanted but couldn't afford. Places to go, sights to see. Now you can have it all and then some. But Sandy didn't say anything for a while as he sat looking at the fortune within his grasp. And Clyde thought, I would have expected he'd be over the moon with such an extraordinary gift. But it seems that's not the case. Strange. Very strange. While Sandy was thinking, he's right. Alma and me could do a lot with that sort of money. But for some reason it just doesn't seem right to take it. Maybe I should talk it over with her just to see how she feels. And if she says I'm plain daft for having second thoughts about it, then I'll take it. What are you thinking, Sandy? Clyde asked, breaking the silence. I was thinking that maybe I should talk it over with Alma before making a decision one way or the other. Okay, I can understand that. But what? But there's something else bothering you, isn't there? Sandy nodded, then said, I feel awkward about taking someone else's money, is what it is. But Sandy, those someones are dead and buried. Surely you must understand that. I do. Sure I do. But don't you think the Salvos should have it? After all, the sisters left everything to them. Lock, stock and barrel. That's true. But the sisters didn't will any money to them or anyone else. And as far as the bank or credit union and solicitor are concerned, there was no money to begin with. In other words, for all intents and purposes, the sisters died penniless. And as far as this house goes, it and everything in and about it is mine. Full stop. I didn't think of it that way. Be damned if I did. And because I found what nobody knows exists, I claim it as mine. Mine to do whatever I want to do with it. And what I want to do with half of it is give it to you. Oh, well, when you put it that way, how can I say no? Phew, Clyde exclaimed as he jokingly wiped imaginary sweat off his brow, then flicking it away. I didn't realise how hard it would be to give $760,000 away. Be damned if I did. And then he smiled. Sandy smiled. Then Sandy began to roll the smoke with trembling hands. The enormity of what had just happened unnerving as much as it was generous. Almost unbelievably so. With a fresh mug of tea before each, Clyde turned the lids to the 4 shoe boxes. He just had to. With his eyes constantly finding their way to the money, he found it almost impossible to relax. And Inspector Sandy felt the same way. Probably even more so. And as hard it was not to talk about the money, he didn't want to. So he said, Did you finish reading the sisters' writings, Sandy? But it seemed Sandy's mind was elsewhere. Perfectly natural, Clyde thought, considering the circumstances. So for several moments he sat in silence waiting. And when the moments passed, Sandy said, You say something, Clyde? Clyde smiled. I said, Did you finish reading the sisters' writings? The sisters? Oh, yeah, the sister story. Right. Yes, I did. And? And what? Good grief, Clyde said in frustration. I might as well talk to myself for all the good it does talking to you at times. Then, with emphasis, what did you think of what you read in the diaries? Feigning humility, Sandy said, Sorry, Clyde, but I just can't help thinking about all that money. And even then I don't know what I'm thinking. I know what I'd be thinking. It's tax-free and it's mine, and I'm going to enjoy what remains of my life without any more money worries. Then I'd leave it at that, and game over. You never fail to impress me with your logic, Clyde. You know that? I try, Sandy, Clyde said, then smiled. I try. Anyhow, Sandy began, what were you asking me before? Oh, yeah, the sister story, that's what it was. Uh-huh, Clyde nodded, thinking then, bloody hell, finally the penny has dropped. Yes, well, you know, I always thought they were a bit eccentric, but after reading what they had written, I guess they had every reason to be that way. And that father of theirs, bloody hell, what a lowlife he was, for Christ's sake. Raping and humiliating his daughters like he did. I tell you, Clyde, it made me feel uncomfortable just reading what he did to them. No wonder they killed him. She'd have killed that bloody mother of theirs too, to my way of thinking. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Sandy, Clyde said. But you know, Clyde, Sandy said, it just goes to show that you never know what's going on behind closed doors, do you? You see people on the street, you say hello to them or nod, and you think you know them, but you don't. And even if you're friends with some of them, next door neighbours and the like, you still don't know them, don't you reckon? I reckon you're right, no doubt about it. And who'd have thought that the sisters would have been capable of murder, let alone get away with it? Yeah, who'd have thought, eh? Don't know about their father coming back to haunt them, though. In two minds about that, I am. Just like it was with my grandfather. I only believed him because I knew he wasn't pulling my leg. But as for the sisters, well, same with that close encounter they said they had too. No doubt in my mind about the big roo they saw, though. No doubt about that at all. Do you think it might be the same one you saw on the top of Tall Hill, Sandy? I don't think so, Clyde, because that happened 30 years ago. Oh well, in that case, it couldn't possibly be the same one then, because I get the impression they saw it in the 40s, maybe the 50s. Be a bloody old roo if it was, wouldn't it? Ancient, more like it, Clyde said. Following a brief pause, Sandy said, I don't want to sound like I'm going on about this money, Clyde, but I just thought of something. What made you think that there was money to begin with? And how did you know the sisters had stashed it away? I remember you and Bob Lawrence saying that the local branch of the Salvation Army had been left the house and contents, but neither of you mentioned any money. So when I read that their mother had inherited handsomely following the death of her father, coupled with what she had inherited from her late husband, much later to be added to when the sisters sold the pharmacy, I couldn't help but wonder where all the money went to. And a considerable amount of money it must have been, too, when you consider that the sisters, by their own admission, weren't spendthrifts. And in answer to your second question, I didn't initially think that they had stashed it away. But the more I read, the more enlightened I became. Yet it wasn't until the morning that it dawned on me that that must have been what they did. But how come you only thought about it this morning and not before? Clyde smiled and said, pure happenstance it was, Sandy. I was standing at the supermarket checkout this morning, waiting to be served, and there was an old lady in front of me being attended to by Mrs. Alderman, counting out gold and silver coins to pay for her purchases, which, I might add, I was compelled to make a small contribution to. Anyhow, when the old lady left and Mrs. Alderman commenced serving me, she said that she, the old lady, was an old coot because of her habit for paying everything with coins, considering she was one of the wealthiest women in the Shire. Going on to say that it was rumoured that she had been withdrawing large amounts of $1 and $2 coins from the credit union during the past 10 years and hoarding them at home. And that's when I was convinced that that's what the sisters had done. Jessie Carmichael that'd be, Sandy said. Everyone knows her. And Mrs. Alderman is right about her being an old coot, because you're one in a long line of people who have contributed to her purchases at the supermarket. Crafty old bugger that she is. But I still don't understand how you came to that conclusion, Clyde. I mean, what's to say that the sister did that, rather than leave the money in their account? They were hoarders, Sandy, and the money was theirs. So there's no way they'd leave that money in the credit union or bank account. I was positive about that. And they probably did it over a long period, just like Mrs. Carmichael, drawing out $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 at a time, for all I know, or $100 notes, then stashing the lot away. Satisfied, Sandy shook his head, then said, I just can't get over all that money being hidden underneath that old stove. Be damned if I can. Clyde smiled, shrugged and said, makes two of us, my friend. Changing the subject then, Clyde said, with regard to the sisters' writing, Sandy, what was your impression of what Henrietta had said at the very end? Confused, Sandy replied, the very end? I don't get what you mean, Clyde. In the last paragraph, Henrietta stated that her sister had visited her and told her that a demon spirit, who Henrietta was in no doubt was that of their father, was preventing her from crossing over. And, oh yeah, now I know what you're talking about. Jesus, but it's hard, Clyde thought. Then, well, what do you think? What am I supposed to think? Clyde rolled his eyes, a look of bewilderment on his face, but he remained silent, hoping Sandy would realise what he was hinting to. Finally, Sandy said, "You can look at me like that all you want, Clyde, because I don't have a clue as to what you expect me to say." "The remains of their father, Sandy," Clyde stressed. "What do you think of the way in which Harriet told her sister to rid her of the demon spirit?" Sandy stared at Clyde, who was looking at him with that look he had when he said he had to know one way or the other about the existence of the pyramid, and he suddenly felt very uncomfortable. "Jesus H. Christ, Clyde, don't tell me you're planning to do what she couldn't. Of course you are. There's no way I'm going to get involved in something like that." "I didn't say I was." "Yeah, but you've been thinking about it, haven't you?" "I have, yes, but I don't think I'd be capable of doing it." "Good, thank Christ for that. Not by myself anyway." "Well, unless you can find someone else to help you, then you're out of luck." Nodding, Clyde said, "I know it'd be an act of sheer lunacy, but I feel I should do something to help her. Help them, I guess it would be now." "Look, Clyde," Sandy said with emphasis, "you desecrate a grave and you'll end up in jail. Then you can kiss everything you've worked so hard and so long for goodbye." "I know that, Sandy. I honestly do, but there must be some way I can help them. There has to be." "But that's what you said about the pyramid. And there's nothing you can do about that either, now is there?" "Oh, but there is, Sandy." "Yeah? Like what? And don't you go over ground we've already tread, Clyde." "Of course not," Clyde said, and smiled. No, I found a way that doesn't require any digging whatsoever, but will prove one way or the other beyond a shadow of a doubt. Ground penetrating radar. Isn't that what they used to locate the remains of those soldiers over in France?" "Yes. In fact, it was because of that I had the idea. And when I searched the internet, I found an Australian company that specialises in them. So I emailed the company for a price. A moment later, as a matter of fact, I wouldn't be all surprised if I'd had a reply to my inquiry already." Then with that said, Clive vacated his chair. By the time he returned to the kitchen table, Sandy had rolled and just lighted a cigarette, exhaling a plume of blue-black smoke as Clyde said, $15,000, Sandy. An hour ago, Sandy would have thought $15,000 was an enormous amount of money, an astronomical amount to spend just to satisfy one's curiosity as well, but not now. Now, a wealthy man himself, $15,000 was but a mere bagatelle, and he made light of the matter. "Might as well buy two, Clyde. That way we'll be able to get the job done twice as fast." Clyde knew he was joking, but just for the sake of getting a rise out of him, he said, "Yeah, good thinking, Sandy. You want to pay cash for yours?" "Don't be daft, I was just pulling your leg is all I was doing." Feigning disappointment, Clyde said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Sandy." "Real sorry I am." "I was joking, Clyde," Sandy stressed. "Really I was." Clyde laughed. "You should see the look on your face. By God, you can be a mongrel at times. Do you know that?" Clyde continued to laugh, nodding his head. Following a short pause, he said, "I'll email the company today and let them know there'll be a cheque posted tomorrow, which means they'll probably get it by no later than next Tuesday. And if they shift the unit out to me the same day, I should have it by Friday. All things being equal, that is." Sandy said, "Might as well put our camping trip off until you've got it then, eh? Then we can kill two birds with the one stone." "I suppose so," Clyde said with reservation. "But it's going to take more than a couple of days to do the survey. In fact, it could take a week or more. which is all right with me. But how do you feel? No worries. A week or two? Doesn't bother me, and Alma won't mind being rid of me for a while. Especially when I arrive home and she see what's in the 2 shoeboxes I'm carrying. Settle then, Clyde said. And it'll give me time to catch up on my latest novel, too. While I'm at it, maybe I might be able to come up with a way to incinerate the remains of the sister's father without desecrating his grave. Shaking his head, Sandy said, "You're not going to let it go, are you?" "I can't, Sandy. I just can't. Otherwise I'll never be able to cross over. If they can't cross over, they'll be in limbo for an eternity. And you know what that means, don't you? Without waiting for an answer, I'll tell you what that means. It means that they will continue to haunt me. And for as long as they do so, so too the demon spirit of their father." Hearing the emotion in Clyde's voice humbled Sandy. And he thought, poor bugger, I'd like to be able to help him. And I know I said I would, but tampering with the dead is just not on. No way. And even if he does come up with a way, which I doubt, he's still got to go to the gravesite to do whatever he has to do. And be damned if I'm going to stand around like a ghoul while he does it. Clyde was thinking, Sandy's gone quiet all of a sudden. Probably thinking I've got a screw loose even to think the way I am. Not that I'd blame him. And maybe I have. Still, I've got to help the sisters no matter what. If that means I do it alone, well, so be it. I meant to ask you this before, Sandy said, breaking the silence. Have you been to see Doc Saunders yet? This morning, Clyde replied. He gave me a check-up and said all was well, adding that the fugue states I've experienced were more than likely due to stress. But just to play safe, he wants me to have a total blood workup and an MRI. And you're going to do that, right? Absolutely. I'll need to make an appointment with the imaging centre in Dubbo, but I'll pay a visit to the local hospital tomorrow to have the blood test, unless I can make an appointment for that too. No, that won't be necessary, Sandy said. Just turn up and they'll take care of it in no time at all. Half an hour later, Clyde brought his vehicle to a curbside stop to the front of Sandy's house, the crunch of tyres on the gravel shoulder alerting Alma, who, like any woman of the house, had to satisfy her curiosity as to who the car belonged to, managing to make it to the front screen door just as the car pulled away as her husband closed the front gate behind him. Opening the door then and saying, "You're getting so old you need a ride home, my love." To which Sandy replied, "Don't be daft, woman." Alma smiled and said, "Or was it because those 2 shoe boxes were too heavy for you to carry?" Ignoring the taunt, Sandy entered the house where, after Alma closed the screen door, Sandy said, "Not heavy, Alma, but valuable. Very, very valuable, as a matter of fact, and Clyde didn't want me walking home carrying near on $800,000, just in case something happened." Laughing, Alma said, "Oh, that's a good one it is, Sandy. Now pull the other one." But when Alma looked at her husband's face, she suddenly realised, "You are joking, aren't you? Do you see me laughing, Alma? Do you? And besides, do you really think I would joke about something like that?" Still not totally convinced, Alma said, "Get away with you, Sandy Harold Merriweather." "I'm serious, Alma," Sandy said, removing the lid from the top box. "Feast your eyes on that." Alma did, and the sight of all that money staggered her when she swayed momentarily, clasping her hand to her heart, eyes wide, mouth open. "Hey, steady on there, old girl," Sandy said, concerned. I'm fine. Really I am, but the sight of all that money just took my breath away for a moment." It does have that effect, doesn't it?" Sandy said. "But where? But how? I mean..." "Sit down, Alma, and I'll tell you all about it." 10 minutes later, the reality of it all still making her heart flutter, but otherwise in control of her emotions. Alma, considering Sandy would be away and knowing he didn't like to fly, suggested that there was no better time for her to do what she had always wanted to do, but had never been able to afford, to visit her sister in the United Kingdom that he hadn't seen in 20 years, to which Sandy gave his blessing and bid her bon voyage, reminding her to send a postcard or two, and buy a souvenir, preferably a bottle of fine Scotch whisky. I want to thank you for watching, and until next time, bye for now. I don't know if you noticed, but in the top right corner of that cabinet, the vinyl sheeting was folded down, and I was catching it in my peripheral vision all the time, and it bugged me, so I tacked it up.